Hello and welcome to the last section of our CSS course. In this video, we're going to talk about best practices, some workflow tips, and a bit of random styles. We will talk about CSS reset and normalize. We're going to talk about naming conventions that you might see inside the CSS. We will talk about the best practices for comments. Then we're going to talk about organizing our CSS in multiple files. After that, we're going to talk about the browser dev tools and some advanced debugging. Next, we'll talk about some random styles, box shadow, for overflow and blur. And then we will insist on accessibility basics. And in the end, we will talk about performance tips. Now, this might seem a lot, but we will briefly touch each because we've talked about some of them in the past. And we will talk about them quickly in this video because they are really easy. So first thing is about the CSS reset and normalize. Usually when we start coding in CSS, we set the margin, padding, border, and box sizing for all elements to none or 0. This means we basically reset the CSS because you know that for some elements, browser applies some margins and paddings or some other styles. But when we do this, we reset everything. And this way we can expect to see bare minimum stuff inside the HTML. We also have normalized that instead of removing all those styles like this, we keep some of them. And we don't usually do it by hand. We usually use some third-party libraries for this. In real web development, we usually use a framework or a library that these stuff come with that library by default. But it's good to know about them. Next, we have naming conventions. So naming convention is a way that allows us to consistently name our stuff. As an example, when we add a class name to an element, we can basically add anything we want. And remember, in development, the code that you write is the code that someone else will read. So it's very important that we write something that is readable. So some of the naming conventions that we have here will help us to do exactly that. As an example, we have block element modifier, shortly called BEM, which basically says that if you have a card and then you have a title inside that card, you use this double underscore to showcase that the title is inside the card. And this title is not a random title. It is inside the card. So as an example to showcase that, here you can see we have a card. And when we have the h2 element inside the card, we use card underscore underscore title like this. Or when we have an image inside this card, we use card underscore underscore image, card underscore underscore image dash dash large. Remember, for modifiers, we use dash dash. We have a block, we have an element in that block, and the modification that we have or that element double dashes to showcase that. For example, card image large. We say there's a card, there's an image inside, and we make it large. Exactly like something that we have here. Remember, it's not always about writing the code. It doesn't mean you have to always use what you have. Sometimes you see code from old projects, so you have to understand these concepts in order to be able to work with those projects. Next, we have comments. So for the comments in CSS, you've definitely seen that we've used comments all the time. And the syntax for that is this. But in VS Code, we use the shortcut, which is Command/ or Control/ in Windows and Linux, and it will automatically comment the line. To kind of showcase that, I'm going to jump back to VS Code. Let's say we want to comment something in CSS. Let's write something, H1. Let's turn the color to red. If I hit Command/ or Control/ in Windows and Linux, it will comment that line. And if I duplicate this multiple times and select all lines and now hit Command and / it will comment all them together. And this is the syntax for that. And this commenting technique works for all programming languages. So I can do the same here for the HTML as well. You can see it comments the HTML. One thing to know about the comment is that people usually use the comment to separate stuff. We have the global styles, and then we have styles for main navigation. So we use comments for separation, which is good. And we also use comments for explaining or writing a message for ourselves or other people. Like we write this to do, we say that, okay, in future, add a hover effect for this navigation link. Kind of like a message. Sometimes we write comments to explain something and the reason that we did that. That is also useful. A clean code is a code that explains itself without the comments. Keep that in mind. Next, we have different files and modules for CSS. Remember, we can import CSS files inside each other. So far, we've been only using style.css. We can have other styles as well, like we can write header.css and style only the header here, like we say like background color gray. To use this, we can actually come here and create another style sheet and link that header here as well. Or we can remove this and inside this style.css, basically use this syntax import like this. So this way we can import CSS files. This will help organizing files. Remember, our goal is to have a clean code and clean file. So if we can separate files and if that would help us to achieve the clean code, it's better to do that. Next tip is about the browser developer tools and some advanced techniques. So let me open the DevTools here. So we have this Elements tab that we can see the elements. At the bottom, we have the styles as well, so we can see the styles. One tab that is important is this Computed tab that basically shows the box model and also the final styles for each element. For example, if I select this A tag, here are all the styles that this A tag has. So the top is 12, and if I click on this arrow icon, it will jump to the place where that is added. So here we can see that style comes from this line. Cool. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is actually some random styles. First, let's talk about the box shadow. So we haven't talked about shadows at all. So let's go ahead and create a div element and add a h1 tag to that and call it CSS Course. And then add a p tag at the bottom, type lorem, and hit enter. So this way we have this div, h1 inside, and there's a p tag in. I'm going to remove this header.css file because we don't need that. Remove everything here as well and select the div element and add the box shadow. So box shadow is a way to add shadow to our element. And it has 4 characteristics we should provide: the horizontal offset, the vertical offset, blur radius, and spread color. Now, to quickly showcase this, I'm going to say 000 black inside this HTML. I'm going to run this file with live server. Now open the DevTools, select this div element, and here you can see the box shadow. And if we click on this icon here, we can play with the shadow in the best way possible. So this is the shadow. You can see we have the circle in the box that if I click and drag it, I can change the style of the shadow. And then we have 2 numbers here for blur. You can see it blurs the shadow, and also the spread. So it spreads that. We can select the color here as well. We can change the color to some other colors which we like. So let's say we like this. All we have to do is right click on that and click on copy value. And inside the CSS, remove this and paste it here. So horizontal offset, vertical offset, blur, spread, and the color itself. Exactly like what we had here: horizontal, vertical, blur, spread, and then the color itself. So this way we can add shadows to our styles as well. So it's very cool and it's really useful. Next, we have overflow, which is very important. Let's go back here and let's say we have this p tag here inside this div. I'm going to remove the box shadow from the div and actually reduce its width to 100 pixels. So in the preview, you can see it has 100 pixels of width. And the only way that it can keep this entire content is to expanding the height because the width is limited. So let's go ahead and make the height 300 pixels. So now the div has 300 pixels, but the text has done some overflow. Now for the exact same div, we can write overflow and use one of these values. If we set it to hidden inside the preview, you can see it has more height than the box, but it's hidden. If we set it to scroll like this, now you can see we have scroll bars for that card. Remember, the height and width is fixed to 300 pixels and 100 pixels, and anything overflowing has scrolls. So right now we have horizontal scroll and vertical scroll. And visible is the way that it was at the first place. So it shows all the overflow here. This is it. You can see in the overflow section, we talked about the visible, hidden, scroll, and this auto actually is a bit different because it adds scroll bars only when necessary. So remember, if we go back to HTML and reduce the p tag, when we set the overflow to scroll, so even though there's nothing to scroll, but the card has these scroll bars. But if we change it to auto, it will only show that if there's something to overflow. And the next style is actually called blur. I'm gonna go inside style.css. I'm gonna make the background red. Actually, at the top, select the body element and add the background color of green. This is what we have. We can add blur by filter. So we can write filter and then use blur and, for example, 10 pixels. You can see it blurs the entire thing. And this blur is a CSS function that we can add for the filter. Remember, we also have other CSS functions as well, so we can use. But blur actually is the most popular one. And we add blur. For example, if I reduce to 1 pixel, you can see it's kind of blurry. And the last topic that we're going to talk about is accessibility basics. People with disabilities rely on accessibility tools to use your website. So it's not all about visuals. Our website must be accessible. Some people use screen readers and some people use other pointing devices. In that case, your entire page should be accessible. We should use semantic HTML, proper color contrast. Some people might have eyesight issues. Focus management is very important. Anything clickable that has some actions should be focusable and should show some style for the focus. And font size is also important to not have something really small or really big. Now to kind of showcase this, here you can see the sidebar that we have. If I click somewhere here and then hit tab, you can see there's something like an outline shows up here. If I hit tab again, it shows up there. So if I hit enter as an example, it will go to that page. So it's very important to create a site that is accessible like this. Here you can see without even using my mouse, I can go back and forth. With tab, I can go forward and shift tab goes backward. So whenever we focus something, we show something like that. So the last topic for this video is performance tips. We're going to talk about the ways that we can make our website fast. And a faster website usually means a website that loads fast. Whenever someone tries to visit our website, we should load fast. First is minifying CSS. Just take a look at the CSS file here. There's an empty line here, or there are spaces in between these. The syntax is really good for humans to read. But for browser and machines, it's not really important. So we can remove all of them. Like we can have CSS something like this. So now instead of taking all those new lines and white spaces, we can shrink this and make it minified. So this is called minification. And minifying CSS will reduce its size, and since the size is smaller, it will load faster. And usually in web, we use some sort of bundler or a build process that does this automatically. Next is optimizing images. Use the correct format. So JPEG or JPG or PNG for graphic with transparency, SVG for scalable icons, and WebP for modern and optimized images. This image that we have here is an SVG. Compression is also another factor. We should compress our images to reduce the file size. Also the size itself, the resolution of the image. 4,000 pixel wide image showing that in a 500 pixel size is not really useful. All right, so that's it for this short video. In the next video, we're going to talk about our cafe project. And after that, we will finish our entire course with a full landing page with full HTML and CSS for the practice. See you in the next video.